What if a T-Rex suddenly dropped into the modern African savanna, facing lions, elephants, and Nile crocodiles teaming up? Could it tear through the entire food chain to kill them and reclaim dominance over these grasslands? At this moment, under the scorching equatorial sun of the Maasa Mara in East Africa, the air suddenly let out a dull thud, as if something had violently forced its way through the atmosphere, punching a hole in it. The next second, a juvenile T-Rex, covered in sparse downy feathers, stumbled out from the distorted heat waves. Less than 2 meters long, weighing only 40 kilograms, with eggshell slime still clinging to its limbs. Yet its eyes were as fierce as a burning blade. But Africa immediately taught it a lesson. The oxygen content of the equatorial air was nearly 5% thinner than in the Cretaceous period. Its dual respiratory system was far from fully developed. And for a hatchling just out of the shell, it felt exactly like someone choking its throat. It suffered hypoxia on the spot, collapsing onto the red, scorching earth. Surface temperature 58 degrees Celsius, singeing the delicate scales on its belly with a sizzling sound. It looked just like a chick thrown into a frying pan. Just as it struggled to stand up, movement came from the grass. An adult male leopard, weighing 70 kilograms, was creeping closer, belly to the ground. There was no fear in its eyes, only the assessment of a predator. This strange thing is weak. Its prey, the leopard, lunged, pouncing precisely toward its target. This was a move it had practiced its whole life. It had never failed. But this time, the unexpected happened. The young T-Rex, with pure instinct and no technique, swung its tail. That muscular tail, built for foraging, struck like an oak club, smashing into the leopard's midsection, sending it flying a good 2 meters away. The leopard landed hard on the ground, a sharp pain shooting through its ribs. It scrambled to its feet, gave it a look of pure, baffled confusion, stared for a moment, tucked its tail, and vanished quickly into the grass. It had won its first skirmish. But the taste of victory was nothing compared to the reality of hunger. It began to search for food. Prey in the Cretaceous period ran at speeds comparable to a person riding a cheap, shared bicycle. But the wildebeests and zebras of Africa start at 70 kilometers per hour. It sprinted over a dozen times, missing every single time. The prey didn't even leave a puff of dust behind. By the 3rd day of starvation, it completely abandoned its imperial dignity, hunched over a wildebeest carcass left behind by wild dogs. It fought for a few bites of carrion, staring down vultures. The emperor of the planet 66 million years ago was just scraping by on the African savanna, by scavenging. But it was growing every day, getting stronger every day. It was using the most humiliating way to accumulate the most terrifying power. In its 2nd year, the T-Rex had grown to 4 meters in length, weighing about 400 kilograms. It attempted its first active hunt, targeting a solitary African buffalo. This buffalo weighed a full 800 kilograms, with the jagged horns curving outward on its head. revered as one of Africa's Big Five. A creature even a lion pride would think twice about. The T-Rex launched its sprint. The buffalo didn't run. It charged straight toward it. Those two jagged horns plunged into the side of its abdomen, flipping it back several meters. A wave of tearing pain hit its ribs. Just as it stood up, the buffalo charged again. This time, it didn't dodge, but instead lunged forward to meet the impact, opening its jaws to clamp down hard on the buffalo's neck. It exerted force with its lower jaw. A sickening crunch of bone followed. The buffalo struggled violently, kicking up clouds of dirt. But that bite force, like a hydraulic clamp that never lets go, tightened its grip. 3 minutes later, the struggling stopped. It panted heavily, looking down at the prey beneath its feet. Although it had taken some injuries, it had won. This was its first real hunt since arriving in modern Africa. In its 5th year, the T-Rex had grown to 8 meters in length, weighing nearly 2 tons. This time, by the river, it met an adult male African lion head-on. The Lion King had 7 lionesses behind him, forming a full hunting formation. The lionesses began to spread out, quietly flanking from both sides. This is the most efficient, cooperative hunting tactic on the African savanna. Any prey facing this formation will instinctively break down before logic kicks in. 2 lionesses were the first to sprint from the flank, leaping onto the T-Rex's back, biting frantically at the scales on its neck. The T-Rex violently swung its body, throwing the lionesses off its back, and spun around to clamp down on the waist of one of them. Its jaws slammed shut. The lioness let out a piercing, tragic roar. Muscles and bones snapped simultaneously under the immense pressure. The T-Rex hoisted her high and threw her hard onto the grass. The remaining lionesses froze in their tracks, because in their millions of years of experience, they had never encountered any prey capable of fighting back and killing an adult lioness like this. The Lion King took a step forward. The T-Rex lowered its massive skull, emitting a low-frequency sound wave from deep within its chest. Not a roar. It was something more primal, as if something from the depths of a 66-million-year-old geological stratum had smashed directly into the nerves of every lion present. The Lion King's pupils constricted violently. He froze in place for a full 5 seconds, and then, with the remaining lionesses, slowly retreated into the grass. The body of one lioness was left behind. From that day on, within a 30-kilometer radius, not a single lion dared to step into its territory. In its 6th year, while drinking at a riverbank, it suddenly encountered a surprise. A 6-meter-long, 1-ton adult Nile crocodile silently emerged from the riverbed, launched a sneak attack, and clamped down on the T-Rex's right hind leg, immediately triggering the Nile crocodile's most terrifying survival skill: the death roll. Violent rotation. A sudden explosion of torque, attempting to drag it to the bottom of the river. Agony. A ripping, searing pain spread through its entire thigh. But the T-Rex didn't panic. It suddenly shifted its weight, violently jerking its right leg upward, and bodily flung the one-time crocodile straight out of the river. The crocodile writhed violently in midair. The T-Rex lowered its head, opened its jagged jaws, and straight down, clamped down hard on the crocodile's torso. With a surge of bite force, its jaws slammed shut. This ancient hunter, which had ruled the African riverways for millions of years, in the face of a much older power, was so insignificant that its struggles were meaningless. It was snapped into pieces instantly. A massive splash rippled across the river surface. A few wildebeest drinking on the opposite bank scattered in a panic, never looking back. In its 7th year, it faced the final test on the African continent. By now, the T-Rex had grown to over 10 meters in length, weighing more than 4 tons. A 6-ton adult male African elephant blocked its path. The elephant spread its wide ears, raised its trunk high, and let out a low-frequency rumble, the most dominant sound across the entire African savanna. This declaration had echoed across this land for millions of years, never once ignored by any predator. The T-Rex paused for a second, then kept walking forward, as if the giant didn't exist at all. The elephant was enraged, lowered its head, and charged, two tusks pierced straight forward, driving deep into the T-Rex's flank. A burst of agonizing muscle pain. The T-Rex was forced to take half a step back. This was the first time since arriving in modern Africa that it had been forced back, but it was only that half step. It suddenly ducked its head, avoiding a second impact from the tusks, and using the weight of its entire head, pressed down hard on the side of the elephant's neck. It then opened its jagged jaws, and that row of bone-crushing teeth embedded itself deeply into the gaps of the elephant's cervical vertebrae, locked in with precision. Never to loosen, the elephant struggled desperately, its 4 feet kicking up vibrations that made the surrounding grass tremble. But once the cervical vertebrae are locked in such a grip, any struggle only causes the bones to snap faster. A deeply dull sound of bone cracking echoed across the savanna. Traveling far and wide, the elephant's legs slowly lost their strength. The 6-ton behemoth collapsed to the ground. In its 10th year, the T-Rex finally reached its full potential, 13 meters long, weighing 9 tons. On the African savanna, there was no longer any creature that dared to look it in the eye. Lion prides took detours, hyenas yielded, crocodiles retreated into the water, elephant herds changed paths. The entire food chain silently completed a total reordering. Night fell. A full moon hung in the sky over the Maasa Mara. It walked with a measured pace, treading across that red earth intertwined with blood and dust, ascending to a highland overlooking the savanna. It opened its massive jaws, and toward the African night sky, let out a roar, an ancient cry that had traveled through 66 million years of time. The entire savanna fell into silence. No modern creature dared to respond. And this silence was the highest form of submission that this ancient land could offer. The emperor of the Cretaceous, through 10 years of humiliation and bloody battle, on a land that never belonged to him, Had Ray engraved his name into history.